Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Scorch Report. The NFL season is finally over. No more football for a long time. But good news is we still got the NFL draft to be excited for. In today's video, we're going to be doing our very first mock draft. Haven't done much scouting or evaluating, kind of like I mentioned in the last video. If you hadn't gotten a chance to check that out, link will be down in the description below. But like I said, we'll kind of just go into it and assess our needs for each team and pick our top players for each position. If there's anything you guys want to see during the offseason, please feel free to leave it down in the comments below, and let's get right into it. All right, so let's get started. I did want to do this on PFF, but I was doing a mock draft with them before this video to kind of be prepared for it. But apparently you can only do one a day without paying for it. So I'm obviously going to pay for it when I do my scouting for the later mock drafts, but I'm not paying just to do another mock draft. So we got a Pro Football Network mock draft here, but for the future ones, you guys will see PFF. So let's jump right into it. First of all, Raiders. I think it's pretty obvious who they're going to go here. They need a quarterback. There's a good one available. I have my thoughts about Fernando Mendoza. I don't think he's going to be this, great NFL quarterback. I don't know how well he's going to translate, but I think he is a good player, and, the Raiders need all the help they can get at the quarterback position, so I think he will be the first player off the board. All right, next, the Jets. So, Dante Moore pulling out of the draft is pretty unfortunate for Jets fans because I think he's a great player, and it just would have been a great fit to be a New York Jet, but I don't blame him for pulling out of the draft because I wouldn't want to be a New York Jet. But I think this is fine. I think Arvell Reese is a great player. He's the best defensive player besides Caleb Downs, and edge rusher is a little bit more important of a position than safety, so I think they go Arvell Reese here, or at least I would. Cardinals, they have a lot of different needs. On the defensive end, they definitely could use another edge rusher. They need tackle. They could use another wide receiver, although the breakout of Michael Wilson was pretty unexpected, but good for Cardinals fans, obviously. But I think they're going to go tackle here. There's obviously two top tackles, and then after that, there's a pretty big fall off. And I'm not sure whether or not I like Fano or Moaga first. I think I like the Miami tackle. I just think he's a physical specimen, and I haven't really heard much about the Utah tackle. So we're going to go with Francis Moaga here at number 3. This is also another great trade down candidate or spot for the Cardinals. They could definitely pick up some draft capital because I don't think they need to be drafting a tackle at number 3 overall. I just don't think it's great value there. But nonetheless, we're not doing trades in this video, so we're just going to go there. Next, we got the Titans. Like I said, they have lots and lots of needs. They could use a receiver. They could use a corner. They honestly could use any position on defense besides interior defensive line. But I think we're just going to go with BPA, best player available. We're going to pick Ruben Bain, who I think is the second best edge rusher. Next, New York Giants. They could use another receiver. I think they're set on defensive line. They've got a pretty nasty defensive line. They could use an off-ball linebacker. They could probably use a corner. I just don't think there are any corners worth taking in a top 5 pick. So I think I'm going to go wide receiver here. And hot take, I think Jordan Tyson is wide receiver 1. I think a lot of people are falling off of him for some reason. A lot of people are saying prospect fatigue. I think Jordan Tyson is the best wide receiver in this draft, so we're going to go Jordan Tyson. Pair him up with this old ASU buddy, Cam Skattebo. I don't know if that will really play a factor, but that's what I'm going to say in my little mock draft universe here. Next, we got the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns also got a lot of needs. Offensive line, they desperately need wide receiver, and I definitely think we're going to go wide receiver here. Cardinal Tate, another great player. Like I said, I no knocks on him that I chose Jordan Tyson first. Cardinal Tate's another great player, and you cannot go wrong with the Ohio State wide receivers. So we're going to go Cardinal Tate for the Browns. Next, Washington Commanders. They need defense desperately. I'm really tempted to go Caleb Downs here for them. I don't know if a safety is going to be their savior here. They need edge rusher. Interior defensive line, I guess, isn't a huge need. They could definitely use offensive line. They could probably use another wide receiver, but I don't think Mekhi Lemon is worth a top 7 pick here, although he is a good player. I think I'm just going to go David Bailey here. Edge rusher, one of the most important positions in football, and I think he's a good player. I haven't seen him much, but when I was watching Jacob Rodriguez, I definitely noticed him a few times. So, but like I said, I'll go more into depth later. Saints. So I had a little bit of trouble here whether or not the Saints or the Chiefs would go Jeremiah Love. But I think the Saints have a lot more bigger needs than running back for sure. And I was just saying that Mekhi Lemon might not be worth a top 7 pick. I think he's worth a top 8 pick. So we're going to go with Mekhi Lemon. Obviously they got Chris Olave. He doesn't really stay healthy that often. They definitely could use a guy in the slot, and Mekhi Lemon, his great player comp for him is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I think a lot of teams would love to have that kind of player on their team. Then the Chiefs. Unfortunately, I know everyone's going to be like, how did the Chiefs get Jeremiah Love? But just how the way the draft falls. I don't know if they're going to go running back this high. I don't know if they ever have, because usually they pick guys in the 7th round and they end up being pretty good. But their run game was absolutely dreadful last season, and they need an upgrade there desperately. So I think Jeremiah Love is the move for them. He's an amazing prospect. I definitely think he's a lot closer to Genty as a prospect from last year. But I don't know if a lot of people are saying that, but that's what I believe. So we're going to go Jeremiah Love. And then the Bengals. A lot of people are mocking Caleb Downs to the Bengals, and I just think it makes a lot of sense. They need help everywhere on the defense, and Caleb Downs is the best defensive player available, so we're going to go Caleb Downs. Next, we got the Dolphins. Dolphins, I think their main need is probably corner. They also need a quarterback, apparently. Tua has really declined over the past few seasons. They could use a safety, but the best safety just went off the board, and I don't think there's one for a long time. So I think I'm going to go corner here. I tussled with either Mansour Delane or Jamon McCoy. Jamon McCoy, I think, missed all of last season with an injury, but the tape he put on before that was absolutely incredible. So I think he's probably my top corner, but I think the Dolphins will probably, err on the side of caution with the injury stuff and probably go Mansour Delane here. All right, moving on to the Cowboys' first pick. Obviously, if you guys remember, they traded Micah Parsons to the Packers, and they have 2 first-round picks. In this first one, they need a linebacker desperately, and I think that Sonny Styles is one of the best players in this draft. Him and Arvell Reese on the same defense was just absolutely not fair. And yeah, Sonny Styles is a great player, and I think this is a great pick for the Cowboys. It seems very on brand for the Cowboys to go linebacker here, so that's what we're going to do. Next, and another team with another first-round pick, or with 2 first-round picks, I should say. They made the trade with the Falcons in the last season, where the Falcons went up and got James Pierce Jr. That has aged horribly. If you guys didn't know, James Pierce is under a lot of allegations, he did it. There's a lot of proof that he did it, but a lot of aggressive stalking, and a lot of other things that I won't get into on here. Just, if you really want to know, look it up. But yeah, this has aged horribly. The Falcons didn't have a great season, and he, probably is going to jail. So terrible trade for the Falcons, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Rams. And another team that desperately needs corner. I think this is their one big weakness in the playoffs last year. So I think they're going to go and take Jermod McCoy. Again, I think he's my favorite corner off the board, but we'll see as the offseason progresses. Next, we got the Ravens. Ravens definitely had a disappointing season. When you have Lamar Jackson, you really don't want to be missing the playoffs. For obvious reasons. So, to be picking at 14 here is pretty disappointing. But, maybe it's for the best. Maybe the stars are aligning for them to get a good player here. I was looking at the board. I'm not really sure. I think they're good at tackle. They could probably use another edge, but I don't know how I feel about Kendrick Falk. And having another great defensive lineman next to Matabike, I think is going to be really dangerous. And I really like Peter Woods out of Clemson, so we're going to go with Peter Woods here. Next, moving on to the Buccaneers. Buccaneers, they have a lot of needs on defense, like a lot of these teams in the first round. But I think their main need is edge rusher. So we're going to go with Kendrick Falk here from Auburn. Jets, another team with a second first-round pick. There's a lot of teams with 2 first-round picks this year. Obviously, they traded Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams away and got some extra picks this year and next year. And who did I have? I had them taking Arvell Reese. That's correct. They also need corner and lots on defense. So I am going to go a little bit down the board here. Am I tripping? Am I missing somebody? Okay, Avion Terrell was right in front of my face. I just missed him for some reason. But we're going to go Avion Terrell out of Clemson. Younger brother of AJ Terrell out of another Falcon. Talk about the Falcons again. But he's absolutely insane. I know you've probably seen the practice clips of him just absolutely mirroring wide receivers. So I think he's a great player, and that's a great fit for the New York Jets, who are really building this defense now with Arvell Reese and Avion Terrell. Next, you got the Lions, another team that kind of had a disappointing season. Last season, they were in the NFC Championship game, and this season, did they even make the playoffs? No, that's right. They lost to the Vikings on Christmas and got booted from the playoffs. I forgot about that. So, yeah, another disappointing season for a team that was, has a lot of firepower and should have definitely made the playoffs, did not get in this time, and here they are at number 17. Let's see who I had them taking. Oh, right. We're going to go with Spencer Fano out of Utah. He's the second best tackle, and I think this tackle class after them is pretty weak. So I think getting Spencer Fano to fall to them is pretty lucky and generous, but we're going to go with Spencer Fano here. Speaking of the Vikings, they're right next behind the Lions. Also did not make the playoffs this season. Definitely have a lot to look at in the offseason with J.J. McCarthy. Are they going to bring in somebody to compete with them? I think that's definitely the move. He was not great last season. A lot of flaws that I saw coming personally. I am not a J.J. McCarthy fan, so I'm taking a mini victory lap on him right now. But another team that really needs corner, and luckily there's a lot of great corners in this class. So we are going to go down here to Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina. I hope that's how you pronounce that. I'm sorry, Brandon, if I'm mispronouncing your name. Moving on to the Panthers. This team, all the other teams were talking about having disappointing seasons. They had a surprising season in a good way. They ended up making the playoffs, and they gave the Rams a run for their money. So I think that's a W for them, for a team that has been really not in the playoffs since, the Cam Newton Super Bowl season. And haven't really been that competitive. So I think this is a W for them. Bryce Young showed some strides, so that you want to see that out of your young quarterback. But this team desperately needs defense, just like I said. God, what team doesn't need defense in this draft? Let's see. The Browns probably don't need defense. That's about it. So far, every team. Maybe the Vikings don't really need defense, but you can see a theme here where a lot of these teams picking in these top 19 picks really need defense. Maybe they should get better defenses. So that's what we're gonna do here for the Panthers. We're gonna give them, where is he? C.J. Allen out of Georgia. Their linebackers were some of the worst I've ever seen last season, so they desperately need an off-the-ball linebacker, and we're gonna go C.J. Allen out of Georgia. Can't go wrong picking a Georgia defender, kind of like picking a Ohio State wide receiver. Cowboys with their second pick in the first round. There's a guy, he is way down the board here, but I still really like TJ Parker. He was mocked at the top of mock drafts at the beginning of the season, and he just didn't really have a great season. But I really still believe in his talent, and so I'm going to go TJ Parker here for the Cowboys. Kind of get that Micah replacement. Obviously, it's hard to replace a player like Micah Parsons, but TJ Parker can do his very best. Moving on to the Steelers. Steelers are kind of in limbo right now. They have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. Hasn't announced his retirement. Probably should. But nonetheless, if he comes back for another season, I think he was fine this season. He kind of gave them some steady quarterback play. So if he comes back for another season, I don't know how high this team's ceiling is. But that's why I'm going to go Ty Simpson out of Alabama. Lots of rumors that he might still slip back into the first round, even after he kind of rapidly declined at the end of Alabama's season last year. Obviously, I'm a little heartbroken about it, but yeah, I think Ty Simpson is still a decent player. I don't know how much upside he provides you, but you kind of got to get somebody else in the building. Aaron Rodgers can't be your long-term plan. So I think, this is very eerily similar to drafting Kenny Pickett, but I think Ty Simpson's a better player than Kenny Pickett is. So Ty Simpson to the Steelers. All right, heading down the stretch here, we got the Chargers next up. Everybody knows what the Chargers' problems are. Their tackles are very strong. They were just hurt this season, so we're not going to look at tackle. But that interior of the offensive line needs help desperately. So I was looking at between Loan and there's somebody else. Maybe it was just Loan. I don't know how to pronounce that name. I'm not even going to try, but he's the top guard out of Penn State, so we're just going to pick him to go there. And let's move on. So next we got the Eagles. The Eagles had a decent season. They definitely had their issues on offense, with the play calling and, Jalen Hurts kind of had his struggles, but they were the defending Super Bowl champions, and I still think they had a decent season. And they got a nice little first-round pick here. I definitely think they could add to that defensive line room. Obviously, the rich get richer in this situation, but I'm just not really seeing who else they could pick here. I guess they could go wide receiver and form a nice trio, or if they're planning on trading A.J. Brown, they could use another wide receiver. I could definitely see them trading A.J. Brown before or on draft night and then picking a wide receiver at this spot. Or if, they end up getting a first-round pick for A.J. Brown somehow and they get a higher pick, they could definitely go wide receiver. But in this universe, A.J. Brown is still an Eagle, so we are going to go with edge rusher here. And for them, I picked Cassius Howell out of Texas A&M. Where is he? Oh, wow, he is way down here. That's interesting. Who do they have? Oh, they have Messidor above him. I like Messidor out of Miami, so maybe I will just switch things up. And where did I thought I took Messidor in another spot. Well, we're going to go Messidor and change things up here. He was right across from Ruben Bain, and they had a nasty pass rush duo. So I like Messidor. We're going to go with him for the Eagles. And look out, league. That defensive line is disgusting. All right, another team with a second first-round pick. We got the Browns. With their first pick, they went Carnell Tate. So I think with this pick, we are going to go offensive line. And, I think this is going to be a great value pick with Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor, another guy that was, mocked pretty high as one of the top tackles in this class before the season. Didn't really have that great of a season. So he kind of fell down the rankings here, but I think this is great value, number 24. He's a physical specimen. He's great. So we're going to go with Caden Proctor here. Next up, we got the Bears. Bears had another promising season, kind of like the Panthers, obviously a little bit better. They ended up winning their division, and they gave it to the Packers, and they just couldn't get it done against the Rams. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but they definitely have some problems on the interior of their defensive line. Watching those games, they just didn't generate a lot of pass rush. So they definitely need an edge rusher, but I just don't really like any of these in this range right now. So I think we're just going to go interior defensive line to help beef up that run defense, and we're going to go with Caleb Banks out of Florida. Next up, we got the Bills. We all know what the Bills desperately need. They've been needing it for years. Who knows if they're going to, get out of their own way and stop being stubborn and actually draft a wide receiver. Obviously, you never know with the NFL draft, but I think they need a wide receiver. They need to give Josh Allen someone to throw to. Keon Coleman obviously regressed a lot this season, which is very unfortunate. I was very high on him as a player, and I still think he has a lot of potential and has really high upside. But he really has got to start getting it together here soon. But he is still very young. I think he's only 22 years old, so no reason to give up on him yet. But I think we're going to go wide receiver here and get Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M. Another great wide receiver. I really like this year's wide receiver class. I think it's very top-heavy for sure, but I still think there's a lot of great players. Next, we got the 49ers. 49ers, like I said, they just need to get healthy. I think I said it earlier when they ended up losing to the Eagles in the playoffs. I was like, not much you can do when they're always injured, so they just need to get healthy, but maybe that means they need to draft more depth. I ended up going with a receiver for them. I don't know if they necessarily need a receiver. Obviously, we have no idea what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. Ricky Pearsall's a good player, and Christian McCaffrey's basically a wide receiver, so... And Kittle's not going to be there next season with the torn Achilles, but obviously they still do have George Kittle. And they have Jawan Jennings as well. So I don't know why I went wide receiver for them. I think I'm gonna change it up here. Let's get him some offensive linemen, and we're gonna go with Caleb Lamo out of Utah. Utah had a deadly tackle duo. That quarterback was probably sitting back there all day long. Next up, we got the Texans. Texans, obviously, they have a great defense, but they need offensive line, and whoops, I just stole their tackle that I was going to give them. But you know what? That sucks. That's how the draft goes. So we are going to move on. I do like this tackle out of Arizona State, so we're going to pick him instead. But that's a tough break for them if the 49ers end up going Lamu. All right, Rams are back up here on the clock. We got the last 4 picks of the draft, or the first round, not the draft. What did they go in the first pick? We went Jermon McCoy corner. Yes, they definitely need corner. I don't think they're going to go back-to-back years taking a tight end out of Oregon, but, if they do, good for them because Kenyon Sadiq is a great player. They don't need really a wide receiver. Cade McDonald, I think that defensive line is very stout, so I'm not too worried about getting them a defensive lineman. I don't think they'll draft 2 corners in the first round. That would kind of be crazy. I'm thinking safety here. The safety out of Toledo has been getting a lot of hype, so I think we're going to go with him. Next, we got my Broncos. I'm going to go with the easy pick here, Kenyon Sadiq. Evan Ingram was quite a disappointment last season for them. He had, he went back to his old ways of having drop issues, and I just don't think he provided much for the offense. And I think Bo Nix definitely needs a better safety blanket. Kenyon Sadiq is a total beast. He's an athletic freak, so I think that's a great pick for them. Next, we got the Super Bowl runner-up, the New England Patriots. They definitely had a lot of needs on the offensive line, but I just don't like a lot of the offensive linemen in this range. They also definitely need a linebacker, an off-ball linebacker, so I think I'm going to go with Anthony Hill Jr. here out of Texas. I really do like him, so we're going to go with them for the Patriots. And then last but not least, your Super Bowl champion, Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, they're perfect. They won the Super Bowl, so what else do they need? No, can't think like that, but I definitely think they could probably use some interior offensive linemen. Their tackles are still pretty good, but definitely the interior could use some beefing. And I went with the guard out of Oregon, Emmanuel Pregnon. So that concludes our first round mock draft. Let's look at our results here. I'll kind of just list them off for you guys. Number 1, Raiders go Fernando Mendoza, Jessica Arvell-Reese, Francis Muaga, Ruben Bain Jr., Jordan Tyson, Carnell Tate, David Bailey, Mekhi Lemon, Jeremiah Love, Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane, Sonny Styles, Jermod McCoy, Peter Woods, Kendrick Falk, Avion Terrell, Spencer Fano, Brandon Cisse, CJ Allen, TJ Parker, Ty Simpson, Oleva Vega, Ione, Akeem Mesidor, Caden Proctor, Caleb Banks, Casey Concepcion, Caleb Lamu, Max Ihenaker, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, Kenyon Sadiq, Anthony Hill, Emmanuel Prega. And I'm very sorry to anyone if I pronounce their last names. Please correct me down in the comments below. I'm bad at English. So that's going to be it for our mock draft. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Like I said, if you guys have any ideas for videos for the off-season, please feel free to leave them down in the comment sections below. If you hate any of my picks and think I don't know ball at all and know absolutely nothing, also leave that in the comment section down below. I'd really love to hear from you guys. So, and if you guys have any, things that you like or any prospects specifically that you want me to scout, just let me know. So, and that's going to do it for me, guys. Our very first mock draft of the offseason. Like I said, I don't know much yet, so please don't get mad at me or get mad at me. That's totally your prerogative. And if I pronounce anybody's names and you know how to pronounce it, give me an English lesson down in the comments. Or if you think I don't know ball at all and you think I'm an idiot, also let me know. I'm totally down for that. But if there's anything you guys really do want to see, please feel free to let me know. I really do appreciate all your guys' support. We'll catch you in the next one.